Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for the Auburn Tiger fans coming out of the transfer portal as former Texas defensive back Jerrin Thompson commits to Auburn. And this was a guy that when he hit the transfer portal after Texas lost in that college football playoff matchup, it garnered a ton of Power 5 interest from a lot of different programs and was actually supposed to take a visit to the Florida Gators following his Auburn visit. That visit did not happen as Jerrin Thompson commits to Auburn. And I want to talk about a few different things. One, Jerrin Thompson, from a personnel standpoint, a massive addition to this Auburn Tigers program that needed some veteran talent in that defensive back room. When you're losing guys like DJ James and Puckett, Simpson, Pritchett, there was a lot of, I think a room that is relatively talented, but it's young. And you're going out and getting a guy in Jerrin Thompson that has played a ton of football, over 2,000 snaps during his career at Texas, to kind of add some experience to that defensive back room. But I also want to have the conversation about how Hugh Freeze is going about this transfer portal cycle, because I'm a big fan of what he's doing. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. There has been a ton of support as we've talked Auburn on the high school trail and the transfer portal. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. This is one of my favorite aspects of college football, talking about roster construction, talking about how to build your roster using the high school ranks, using the transfer portal. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support. If you guys do enjoy the content, enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, I want to get into Jerrin Thompson, but I first want to kind of have a conversation about how Hugh Freeze is going about building this Auburn roster heading into the 2024 year. And that was, you saw a much stronger emphasis getting that high school class right in 2024 and a little bit less emphasis on the transfer portal. And although the transfer portal commitments are extremely exciting, you look at how Auburn gets back to competing for SEC titles, competing for national titles, it's going to come from the high school class, right? The blueprint is recruiting high school at a high level and then using the transfer portal to kind of supplement your roster and take a look at your roster and say, where do we need to add veteran talent heading into next season? And I think that's exactly what Hugh Freeze has done. Is it as flashy as last transfer portal cycle for the Auburn Tigers? No, absolutely not. But you look at the kind of guys that they're bringing in, it's clear that they took a look at this roster and said, all right, there are a few spots that we need to get more talent, more depth, more experience in. And that's kind of where they're targeting at, right? Going out and getting a guy like Trill Carter from Texas to bolster up that defensive line, and going out and getting a guy like Jerrin Thompson to bolster up a youthful Auburn secondary heading into 2024. I think they're doing a really nice job marrying that high school recruiting class and then filling in their roster with experienced guys in the transfer portal. A guy like Jerrin Thompson, if you guys have been listening for the last couple of weeks when his name was entered in the portal, a guy that I'm really excited for. And the first thing that you're most excited for, and probably the thing that you're most excited for if you're an Auburn fan, is experience, right? You're losing 4 guys to the NFL draft. It is an Auburn secondary room that, again, I think has the talent, but not necessarily the experience. You get that with Jerrin Thompson. This is a guy that has over 176 tackles during his career at Texas, 5 interceptions, 18 passes defended, has started for Texas for a very long time, has played over 2,100 snaps during his career. The experience for a guy like Jerrin Thompson is certainly there. But another thing that you absolutely love if you're Auburn is the versatility that Jerrin Thompson brings to the table. And again, a guy that we talked about last week as potentially being a target. You take a look at his snap counts, right? 360 snaps as a free safety, kind of playing that single high, that deep safety role. 116 as a slot defender, playing that nickel role. And then 86 in the box. This is a guy that gives you a lot of versatility and a lot of flexibility to play a lot of different roles for this Auburn Tigers defense. And that is something that we talk about a ton in terms of where college football is going, specifically on the defensive side of the football. You want to give a lot of different looks. And quite frankly, you need to give a lot of different looks because opposing offenses, they're starting to get a lot more speed on the field. And so you need guys that can match that speed, but also be a hammer in the run game and provide run support as well. The whole goal, I think, of defense in like the modern college football era is matching all the speed that the offense wants to put out on the field, but also not giving up enough or not giving up too much against the run. And a guy like Jerrin Thompson as a chess piece to kind of do that certainly kind of fills that void. Again, a guy that is very comfortable playing in the box, being in run support. You go back to his 2022 year, had over 11 run stops, a only 10% missed tackle rate. This is a guy that can play in the box, take on blocks, tackle running backs kind of around the line of scrimmage. That's probably what you're most excited for a guy like Jerrin Thompson. Now, his missed tackle rate jumped to over 20% in 2023. That is something you want to see get cleaned up. But a guy that has played a ton of football, has played a lot of different roles in a defense, that's probably what excites you the most, and really good in coverage. Again, 5 interceptions, 18 passes defended. You take a look at what he's done in coverage, only allowing a 59% completion percentage when targeted. A guy that can be a force in the run game, but also be really good in coverage, whether that's playing that nickel role, whether that's playing that safety role. That is a guy that you talk about modern college football and getting those players that are going to help you do that. I think Jerrin Thompson is certainly a chess piece with a ton of experience that allows Auburn to kind of play that kind of defense. And you take a look at Auburn and what they've done in this 2024 transfer portal cycle. Again, it's not as flashy. They haven't taken as many names, but some guys that really get you excited, right? We talked about Percy Lewis, a offensive tackle with a ton of upside. I could see starting for Auburn in 2024, 6'8", 345 pounds, played extremely good for Mississippi State down the stretch. And then a guy like Trill Carter, who is not necessarily a guy that was the most coveted interior defensive lineman in the portal. He was 12 months ago coming out of Minnesota, but a guy that Auburn took a look at their roster and said, we need these kind of bodies on that defensive line. And so we're going to go out and get a guy like Trill Carter that's going to add depth, going to add experience and talent to that inside of the defensive line. And you start scrolling down and they're kind of checking some boxes. A guy like Rico Walker, who is an absolute freak athlete, who I could really see emerging as that next tight end after Rivaldo Fairweather. You get a guy like Sam Jackson, who we're all excited about making that transition to wide receiver as the former quarterback. And you continue to scroll down, getting a guy like Gage Keys, who again, providing that depth and experience on the inside of that defensive line. A guy like Robert Lewis, who is extremely productive at that wide receiver room. You start looking at Auburn, and again, going back to the conversation of how to use the transfer portal, I don't think the correct method of the portal is to completely overturn your roster. I view the portal as kind of a method where you can look at this program and look at this depth chart and say, where do we need immediate support heading into 2024? In years past, you didn't really have that ability, right? And so you now have the transfer portal where you can immediately fill in some holes of your roster. And I think Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers are doing that in a massive way, right? Plugging up that defensive line, getting some experience in that defensive back room. A guy like Jerrin Thompson, again, someone who's played a ton of football at the Power 5 level on a really good defense like the Texas Longhorns, a guy that's a plug-and-play starter for Auburn heading into that 2024 year. Really, really good get. And again, not the flashiest get, but a get that is going to help this team heading into 2024. But Hugh Freeze, make no mistake about it, knows what it takes to get Auburn back to where it belongs, and that is getting the high school recruiting class right. He certainly did that in 2024. Sounds like they're trending in the right direction. For a guy like Ryan Williams, Auburn Tiger fans have a ton to be excited about. We'll continue to update you guys as Auburn continues to do work in the high school class, in the transfer portal. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If you guys do enjoy the content, enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.